Yo, what is up guys, it's your boy Sami here. Today we are gonna see what if Naruto married with Naori Uchiha, part 3. So without wasting any time, let's start the video.
As two shinobi clashed after a brief intermission in which the blonde-haired boy named Naruto Uzumaki smirked at his progress, the kunoichi he was staring down smirked, as well thinking of how Itachi would meet his demise sooner or later. Hopefully sooner. For the past 2 weeks, since they first met, Naruto had constantly returned to visit and train with the girl he had an almighty crush on, Naori Uchiha. It hadn't taken any effort whatsoever to practically put the young blonde in the palm of her hands, and the Uzumaki had been immediately overwhelmed by the subtle touches she would use every now and then while showing him some of the Uchiha clan sword techniques. While the boy would never really need to be able to use the style she used to its full potential because of his lack of eyes, he still was overjoyed to be learning another two-sword style besides the one he had been practicing. The illusion blade technique philosophy centered around telegraphing swift cuts to gain a reaction from the opponent, and then at the last second when they tried to counter the trajectory would change and strike an opening. Naruto hadn't managed to even get close to her not even once, but his steady improvement was notable, and something that Naori constantly praised him for. After spending so much time with Naruto for the last 2 weeks, the future hunter Nin has come to genuinely care for the young Uzumaki, and despite the fact that she had initially only expressed interest in him because of his potential to help her, that had changed. Naruto was a one-of-a-kind person who was ambitious, funny, and very endearing, as she quickly found out, and a couple times she had to keep herself from lightly blushing when he looked at her in admiration and adoration. Naruto seemed to just enjoy looking at her for long periods of time, and he always seemed to be intoxicated simply because of her presence. She was a bit surprised to hear about his rivalry with her second cousin Sasuke, but she constantly assured the boy that all Uchiha weren't like he was, and even gave the example of Shisui Uchiha who she had once been close to, before Itachi was rumored to have killed him in cold blood. The clan killer deserved to die more than anyone in her eyes, and she had managed to persuade Naruto into despising him more so than he already had. Naruto had managed impressive feats in the short time thanks to his clones, and had learned the underground fish technique, the water encampment wall, the force lightning, and recently the phoenix flower technique, and flamethrower with her help. He had much difficulty with the fire techniques especially, but he could now perform them both at the cost of a lot of chakra. He had to use two-handed seals with all the elemental he learned, and while he practiced day and night he just couldn't manage to use them one-handed. Naori had already managed to use all of her techniques with the single-handed seals, and so she had recently opted to adapt her to a single sword style for actual combat. She still practiced with Naruto using two however, and the boy had displayed a natural talent unlike anything she had ever seen. As Naruto burst forward with his sword held waist level pointing toward Naori, he crossed his arms and attempted a horizontal X cut, as if he held scissors. Naori, sidestepping the attack that she learned was from the Uzumaki style, was forced to leap away when Naruto jumped with his back toward her, and spun into a sideways twisting attack. Mid-air. He did this during the Haku fight, when Haku tried to finish him from above, after he used chakra. As the spinning blonde landed with a blade in front of him, and the other behind his back to guard it, he suddenly found Naruto's swords near his neck, and he laughed sheepishly knowing he had lost again. Truth be told, Naruto had become infatuated with her due to her skill along with her beauty, and even though he still liked soccer, the pink-haired girl wasn't normally the one inhabiting his dreams for the most part. The day after Sasuke had tried to challenge him, Sakura had shown up to class, and the girl was a wreck. Her eyes looked puffy like she had cried all night and morning before coming to class, and even though Naruto had defended her again from some fangirls that made fun of her lack of makeup saying she needed beauty sleep, she hadn't been as uplifted as he had hoped. It turned out that Sasuke had chewed her out after he had recovered from Choji slamming him, and while Naruto didn't know what was said he was sure it wasn't pretty. As a result he had attempted to fight him for Sakura's honor, but not only did she still fucking object, but the Anbu were involved after being ordered by the Hokage to keep them separated. That wasn't what was unbelievable though, but somehow the team had landed a famous private tutor that had apparently mastered 1,000. 1,000. It just didn't make sense to Naruto. How the hell did he always get what he wanted when he was obviously fucked up in the head and treated everyone like garbage? Why did Sakura still defend him? Why wouldn't she just let him sweep her off of her feet? At least Naori treated him with respect, and dare he say love. The older girl was constantly on his mind even while he studied seals and practiced shunshin. She had been helping him learn to use the high speed inside of combat, and she had even said that Shisui was once hailed as the strongest Uchiha in their clan, and famous for using it. While she had endurance issues and couldn't use it that much, Naruto didn't have that limitation, and she had made sure to make him focus on it more than anything else. As a result, the boy could now damn near teleport all around her almost to the point of leaving after images, and he had begun trying to use it and the shadow clone simultaneously. If she were to be honest with herself, it wouldn't be long before he was stronger than she was thanks to his clones and devotion, and the boy never stopped training, since he always had clones out and about. His talent was pretty non-existent, but after she told him that was her specialty, he had vowed to learn to use it, as well wanting to impress her. He was so easy to manipulate, but she wasn't complaining. It just meant he'd be that much more loyal to her, and be a great husband when she decided to rebuild her clan. She didn't know who Sakura was or Hinata Hyuga, but she mused that the two other kunoichi he told her about didn't hold a candle to her in any way. After a little prodding, she had managed to take the majority of his time after he left the academy, and a boy had also begun getting her interested in sealing after telling her how his grandfather used them in combat. If the Uzukichi could do such amazing things with his swords and seals, she figured she could too, and she already had learned calligraphy, since her eyes made precise brushstrokes easy. Despite displaying a little jealous of how easy things came to her, Naruto still congratulated her, and even got her a book on sealing from the library after he copied it, and gave her the copy he made. As far as sealing went for him, his handwriting was improving quickly, although he was far from the perfection that was required in. He still practiced rigorously 24/7 though, and he also improved his taijutsu style with her, after she showed him several styles she had copied during her lifetime. The one he liked the most was the tiger-style taijutsu she had picked up during an ongoing mission to Iwa, and he seemed to take to his powerful claw striking grabs instantly. He integrated it into his Wing Chun style along with Mue, and despite the flaws in his new style, it was still effective. The main flaw was that it was too straightforward, but considering his personality at least it fit him. As the boy she was thinking about began speaking to her in a subdued tone of voice that was particularly unusual, she paid close attention to his soft words. I have something I gotta tell you, and I hope you'll understand I'm not very well liked in the village, and there's a reason why everyone hates me so much. When they attacked all those years ago, the Hokage couldn't kill it, and so he sealed it inside of me. The power of human sacrifice, but they don't see it that way. To them I'm just that damn demon fox, or a weapon to be used, and tossed to the side when they're finished. Her eyes wide, as Naruto trailed off with his voice becoming weaker and weaker. The Uchiha didn't really know how to respond to the fact that he had an all-powerful demon inside of him. It made sense though, since she had often seen and wondered what the red specks of chakra that circulated within him were. She began feeling very guilty thinking that in essence she had been thinking of using him as a weapon as well, and looking into the eyes she had started to love so much in the short time she said, "Naruto, I didn't know. I can't imagine the pain you've been put through. A hero shouldn't be treated like dirt for saving the same people that hate him. I don't know what to say." She had said enough, as the boy surprised her by latching onto her and burying his head in her chest while looking downwards. Hugging her for dear life, Naruto finally blurted out the words he didn't even have to think about saying. "Naori-chan, I love you so much." She just stood there dumbfounded at his admission, and eventually she pushed him away with a pained look in her eyes saying, "Naruto, I can't lie to you. When we first met here I only really wanted you to help me kill Itachi, but now there's something more. Tears instantly started to fall, as Naruto realized she had been manipulating him like the others, and he couldn't believe that she would do something so full when all he wanted was to be with her. As she started to speak again, he raised his head with a look of utter betrayal that pierced her heart, and she never got the chance to say anything else, before he disappeared in a swirl of wind without any hesitation. He had just been about to ask her to come away with Jim to Whirlpool, but now he didn't want to ever see her again. It pained his heart deeply, and after arriving in his apartment every step seemed to last an eternity, as her betrayal stung him in the depths of his soul. Why couldn't he ever just meet a girl that loved him for him, without anyone or anything to get in the way? Hinata had been forbidden from seeing him, Sakura was stuck on Sasuke, although she did still blush because of him sometimes. And now Naori basically said she only valued him because he showed a little skill that she wanted to learn or use. The fact that the first thing she had asked him was about him only reiterates that troubling fact. He honestly didn't want to have anything to do with this stupid village anymore, and since he had already sealed the few belongings he was taking to Whirlpool, he decided to finally do what he had been ready to do anyways: leave. Arriving in a swirl of leaves far outside the Leaf Village walls, Naruto didn't look back at its defensive walls, and transformed into his phoenix form, after using a one-handed seal. He had learned a while back that birds had hollow bones which made them lightweight enough to fly, and he had applied this newfound knowledge, and created a cool orangish phoenix transformation, that combined the best features of different birds from the book. It was agile like a hawk, could swivel its head like an owl, and had sharp talons, and broad wings that allowed for faster and further travel. Since Whirlpool was easy on Fire Country, he set out in that direction hastily, with a few stray tears flowing from his eyes, as he flew. Many hours later, flying over the lush landscape of the Fire Country, and taking in the scenery to keep his mind occupied, Naruto tried his hardest to erase Naori from his thoughts and memories permanently, to no avail. After a little while he started getting hungry, but pressed on regardless, not wanting to waste any time. It wasn't long before he passed over a humble village that was bustling with people, and he decided to take a quick rest before setting out again. As he landed, and a little girl pointed at him in fascination, he didn't even care about the attention he was receiving, as he looked for a small restaurant. At least he could still send a clone to Chirikas, he mused, feeling guilty about suddenly leaving without telling them, and, as Naruto created the doppelganger, and sent it off, he continued on a few more blocks, before seeing a disturbing sight. There was a young girl his age, that was searching through a dumpster with a look of desperation, and, as he halted, he was appalled when several villagers began shouting at her to get away, and they even called her a worthless orphan. She ran off in tears at their harsh words, and Naruto, getting angry, gave chase to her, and saw that she didn't make it far before getting winded. Appearing in front of her, suddenly startling her, he looked concerned, and said, "Hey, I saw what just happened, and didn't listen to them, okay? I'm an orphan too, and my village treated me like trash, but it turns out I'm the heir to the greatest clan of shinobi to ever live. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm pleased to meet you, Dadabeo." As the surprised girl wiped her eyes dry, and sniffled a little, she hesitantly took the hand he extended to her, and was instantly mesmerized by his eyes that were blue just like hers were. She had long reddish-brown hair, blue eyes, a worn kimono, and a headband tied around her head that made her hair a little messy. Seeing Naruto beaming at her, as he took her hands with his own, she slowly told him, "I'm Amer. She didn't get to continue before a few villagers approached the pair rudely. "You should be careful, and leave that homeless orphan alone, boy. She has some kind of disease, and it's contagious. If you know what's good for you, you'd." A fist suddenly impacted his chest, sending him sprawling, as Naruto stood over him looking furious. The blonde coldly told him, "And I've never gotten sick in my entire life, so I'm not a coward that's scared of a couple germs like you are. Instead of making her life harder, you should have the heart to help her, if she is sick. You're the only one worthless here, you bastard." Appearing next to Amer, and grabbing the blushing girl by her waist, causing her to blush more than she already was, Naruto looked into her eyes, and confidently said, "Come on, you're with me now, and I won't let anything bad happen to you ever again. That's my word, and I never break it. That's my ninja way." After sun shining with an overwhelmed Amer, and arriving a little outside of the village, Naruto let her go, but the girl was quick to latch back on, and she started sobbing. Naruto was at a loss for what to say when she started speaking through her son's words. "Thank you so much, Naruto-kun. You're the first person to ever care for me ever. Please keep holding me." Naruto silently stood with her in his arms, shushing her while he used a seal, and created a clone to seal some barbecue, and instant ramen. As the clone began cooking, and she finally noticed, she looked hopefully into his eyes, and asked, "Why, you're a ninja, can you teach me to be a ninja too?" Now Naruto was in an unforeseen situation that could possibly halt his journey to Whirlpool, but the kind of person he was, he couldn't refuse the girl who obviously had nothing else to look forward to. He was sadly her only lifeline, and despite the fact that they had just met, Naruto felt a strong kinship with her due to his own similar experience in Konoha. Running his hand through her long hair without even thinking about it, he told her, "Don't worry about Amer-chan. I'll teach you, and I'll make sure you can always take care of yourself from now on. Let's eat some food first though, cause I'm starving." As both their stomachs growled in unison, they blushed at each other before smiling genuinely, and slowly breaking the embrace. "She's actually pretty," he thought to himself, as he examined the radiant girl that couldn't stop blushing at him. "And she likes me." Then Naruto, getting curious, did something he never did before. Grabbing the girl by her waist with both of his hands, he leaned in, and captured her lips with his own, kissing a girl for the first time in his life. The experience was extraordinary, as she moaned, and stuck her tongue in his mouth on instinct, and his eyes going wide, he wrapped his arms around her tightly, and returned the tongue in full force. It was sloppy and wet, but Naruto loved the feeling, as his member began bulging, and pressed into her, and when she grabbed it through his pants, moaned, and began setting her down, as he lay on top of her. His heart was pounding, as he began undressing her, and pulled down his ninja pants. His length was throbbing, as she took hold of it, and began lining it up with her moist folds, and Naruto grunted in ecstasy as he entered her, feeling the unique warm embrace of a girl for the first time. It was all Kiba had talked to him about besides training, and Naruto had been curious about sex, but afraid to bring it up with anyone else. He hadn't been thinking when he kissed Amer, and his body had been moving on autopilot when he took it further. In all honesty, he had been removed of his mother a little, since she also had red hair, and since Naruto wanted companionship more than anything else, he had decided he'd make sure Amer was all his from the start, even if unconsciously. As he slowly thrust it into her tightness, he clenched his teeth because of how good it felt. He didn't last 10 minutes before his legs began feeling like jelly, and this must have been what Kiba had called shooting his load. If he didn't pull out now, Amer would more than likely get pregnant, and this turned him on even more, as he exploded inside her without warning with a roar of triumph. As she came from the feeling of his seed filling her completely, Naruto leaned in, and kissed the panting girl who looked at him with love. Still twitching inside of her with his eyes lidded, Naruto leaned down, and captured her lips, barely noticing his clone had dispelled a while ago, and realizing she must have still been hungry, he created another, and had it come back, and feed her. The girl seemed to be in another world, and they spent the rest of the day talking, and Amer told him her new dream. She just wanted to be by his side forever, and make his clan great again when they had children. 4 days later. Will she be alright? Naruto exclaimed, worried, standing over the unconscious form of his girlfriend with the medic nin one of his clones had found when she suddenly collapsed while he was training her. He had been happy to see she could indeed mold chakra, but her stamina had been worse than even an elder's because of her sickness, and although she showed fierce determination not wanting to disappoint her sensei and boyfriend, she had pushed herself too far. Naruto had been worried, but she had kept assuring him she was fine, but then a little while later this had happened. Her breathing was uneven and labored, and Naruto had never been as scared as he was now at this moment. Itachi and the masked man had been nothing compared to this, and he never wanted to feel so hopeless again. He prayed she would be alright, even if she couldn't beat Kunoichi he would never abandon her. The next day, as Shino, the kind man who had successfully healed Amer, gave Naruto the good news of her recovery, and being illness-free, the blonde expressed how grateful he was, and decided to ask the man about the medical techniques he used. If he could learn from the medic along with Amer, then he would never be helpless in this sort of situation ever again. The man seemed to beam at him, and agreed, telling Naruto that helping others was what life was all about. The two of them talked for hours about it until Amer began coming to, and Naruto was instantly by her side, smiling brightly down at her, saying, "Hope I was in your dreams, Amer. You're not sick anymore, isn't it great? Everything's gonna be fine. I even got a teacher to teach us medicine." As the blonde ranted on, and on while holding her close to him, Shino smirked, thinking of how the two of them could prove useful. They both would feel indebted to him, and the boy had the most powerful chakra signature he had ever felt. All he had to do now was show them a bit, and wait while his plan came together. After nearly a month of extensive medical and calligraphy training with the help of hundreds of shadow clones, Naruto was ready. While Shino was truly impressed with Naruto's drive and devotion to learn anatomy and medical techniques, Naruto knew he still had a long way to go before being on the older man's level. The kind man had even shown Naruto how to access the first of the gates, and although Naruto lacked the physical prowess that was usually needed, his uncommon healing ability allowed him to bypass this limitation. In fact, he could access the first gate with no drawbacks whatsoever, except feeling immensely fatigued after prolonged use. If his muscles shredded though, he would just heal within a day, and then be that much stronger due to the nature of how muscle increased strength. In essence, he could actually use the 8-gate release to actually train his body to the level where he could safely access more gates, therefore multiplying his strength each time he used it. It was brilliant. Amer had also been a quick study of the academy, and the girl's body was becoming stronger and stronger to the point where she could now take nice jigs with Naruto in the morning. Naruto loved his girlfriend, her kindness and genuine personality always made him feel warm when he was near her. He hadn't even thought about Naori at all the past few weeks, despite the fact that his shadow clones that were sent to the leaf were summoned multiple times by the Hokage. Naruto didn't want anything to do with her now, and he honestly just wanted to forget about the girl that still stung his heart when he thought of her. He had thought once that he had used Amer to help him forget, but he had immediately dispelled that notion within himself. That wasn't the type of person he was, and although he may have done it on an unconscious level, he truly loved his little Redeed. So much in fact that he never left her side at all, not even once. Shino had told him they were far too dependent on each other, but Naruto didn't care about that. He loved her clinginess, and she loved his vice versa. There was also some great news that he had recently gotten from Shino, news that Naruto had wanted to get his entire life. He was going to be a father, it seemed, and when he had first heard, he had literally bounced around for days on end with a huge smile of contentment. Things were finally coming together for the Uzumaki, and so for the first time, and hopefully the last time in his life, he was going to leave Amer for a few days at the longest. Not by herself of course, as he had halted his training in order to create an overly powerful clone that would take at least 4 or 5 days to dispel. He wasn't going to worry her with his trip to Whirlpool, and he had even been making Phoenix clones to explore Fire Country just to make sure he could find the village again. He now could pinpoint his location on the map of the elemental nations he had, despite his horrible sense of direction sometimes. As the blonde gave Amer a deep kiss that channeled all of his love for her, the sparks that flew between them could almost be seen with the naked eye. After walking out of the room and creating a smokeless clone silently, he sent the powerful doppelganger back into the room while he shined away into the village, pulling out his compass and making sure he was facing westward. Transforming into the phoenix form that had mesmerized the villagers and had somehow led to a Naruto fan club, the young shinobi took to the skies in a flapping of fiery orange wings headed toward his ancestral homeland. 1 day later, Naruto was lost. Compass and map of the nations be damned, the blonde realized that air travel wasn't as easy as it might seem. The problem was that while flying he would most likely change direction slightly every so often, but eventually those small adjustments in trajectory would become large deviations. At least he knew he was near the coast of Fire Country. Now all he had to do was find a village of some sort to identify his location. After another half-hour of flight, Naruto decided to send clones in all directions, and after getting a little curious he decided to check out the large volcano he could see off in the distance on a remote island. Wow! Naruto had never seen a volcano before, and circling right over the dormant mountainous terrain he tried, and failed to peer inside, and see some lava, or what was it called? Magma. Whatever. After a while Naruto began to get a little bored, if only a little, and decided he'd circle around the volcano, and see what else was on the island. It wasn't even 15 minutes later that he found out. Death. There were remains of human carcasses scattered about the small village Naruto flew over, and the blood looked so fresh the boy could say it might have just happened before he came to the island. He saw a young woman's shoot up head laying on the ground next to a man's leg that was shredded apart at the middle of the thigh, and so many other gruesome sights. He didn't know what sort of monster could have caused such destruction, but it sure wasn't a kitten. Searching for any survivors, Naruto saw no one, but since he had enhanced hearing, the blonde did catch something far off. Help. Shun shining toward the voice at once. Even though he was in the air, Naruto soon enough found out what exactly was behind the massacre. Well, at least he saw it, but he didn't know what the fuck it was. A giant maggot with tentacles. Gross. But surprisingly, the source of the team for help was the main thing Naruto focused on, and for a moment he thought he was looking at his mother. Then suddenly the long glowing chains of adamantine broke apart, and the large worm-like beast that was being restrained was freed, and instantly went to finish the only threat to its existence. She had been the only one on the island to be able to combat it, as those chains somehow stopped its innate ability to absorb chakra. Perhaps after it absorbed her, as well as the last remaining summons here, it could manifest them, as well. Now be assimilated. It roared in its disgusting squelchy gravelly voice. Tentacles shot from its stomach toward the radiant girl at high speed, and the exhausted Kunoichi resigned herself to death knowing she couldn't dodge, and no one would come for her. Suddenly in a vortex of wind the tentacles were all severed apart, and Hinoka was mesmerized by the blonde boy's swiftness, as he saved her life. She couldn't even register his speed, as she was grabbed by another blonde, and teleported away from the research lab entrance where the beast had cornered her, and, as she arrived near the village, she could hear the distant sounds of a battle commencing. I have to go back. It's my responsibility to subdue the beast, but I failed, and now they're all dead. It's all my fault. She hysterically yelled at Naruto, his eyes widened. Suddenly she was in a tight hug which shocked her beyond belief, and holding her close, Naruto told her with complete conviction. No. I won't let my family be put in danger. Just let me handle that thing, and stay back. Family, she exclaimed, extremely confused. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, heir of Whirlpool, and future Uchiha. Believe it. Her eyes went as wide as possible, and she stuttered. I'm Hinoka Uzumaki. But our clan was destroyed so long ago, before I was even born. How are you? My mother was Kushina Uzumaki, the granddaughter of the Uchiha Shina Uzumaki. I've even gotten to meet him through a complex seal he designed on a mask. I was headed toward Whirlpool before I came here exploring, and looking at what I found. This is so great. I won't let you die, Hinoka-home. Your family, and I'll always protect you, Dadabayo, Naruto told her excitedly. The radiant girl actually began to blush a little, which was unlike her, and Naruto didn't let her escape his hug, and she even returned it a little despite her just meeting him. He really was family, even if distant, he was still an Uzumaki like her. Suddenly she didn't feel so alone in the world anymore, and she let herself just melt in another person's arms for the first time in a long while. She hadn't hugged like this since she was a child, and she was actually saddened when Naruto let her go with a deadly glare entering his eyes. It defeated my shadow clone. Can you tell me anything about it besides the fact that I won't work on it? It can cast through its eyes, sense chakra, absorb ninjutsu, absorb other summoning animals, and shapeshift. It's supposed to be the ultimate counter to shinobi, and we were nearly finished creating it. I'm in the research lab when it escaped prematurely. It slaughtered everything breathing. Only my sealing chains can subdue it, but it overpowered me, and now there's nothing I can do. Naruto got a peculiar look in his eyes when Hinoka mentioned chains, and, as the beast dragged itself toward them disgustingly, he created 10 clones, and one of them took Hinoka far from the battle. Suddenly tentacles shot from its stomach again, trying to ensnare her, but once again Naruto intervened, as his clones were all sunshine in a circle around the summons. Your opponent is me. So be it, your substance will be more fulfilling. The worm retorted before roaring in shock at being bound again. All the clones that circled it had thrusted their hands out, and adamantine chains with a golden glow shot, and wrapped its squishy flesh tightly. Hinoka was shocked beyond belief upon seeing the 20 chains Naruto had made so easily, as she had only managed about 15 or so, and had trouble with those. Now she knew for sure he was Uzumaki, and a damn strong one to boot. Using the tree walking exercise to stay firmly planted on the ground, the clones pulled with all of their might, as Naruto created 2 more that drew his swords from his back. As both clones held them like spears, Naruto placed his hand in a half-ram seal, as they threw them strongly at the monster's head, and body yelled. Bamboo shadow blades. The swords multiplied into nearly 1,000, and struck the squealing summons through, making it appear like a pincushion. Seeing the beast wasn't yet dead, Naruto released the first gate and burst toward it at high speed, landing on its head and grabbing the various blades that were impaling it. He disappeared in many sunshines, grabbing blades and tearing them through its body as he disappeared and reappeared continuously until it no longer struggled or made noise. Hinoka was stunned by the brutality, and Naruto was literally drenched in blood, panting after slicing and the monster so thoroughly. After that, the boy soon created a mass of clones to bury the bodies of the dead, which endeared Hinoka to him because of his compassion. After paying their respects to the deceased, Naruto was a bit traumatized by having to see and move so many horribly mutilated bodies, but he still tried to stay positive and smiled at Hinoka. "Well, I guess they can at least rest now. I wish I had gotten here sooner, Hinoka, I'm so sorry." They had both washed up earlier at Hinoka's small house, and since Naruto had a chance of clothes always handy, he was no longer doing weight in blood like before. And so Hinoka had hugged him, shushing the Uzumaki, and Naruto started to speak when she suddenly startled him with a kiss. Naruto returned the kiss only a few moments before he broke apart from Hinoka, telling her, "I can't. I'm already seeing someone else, and I love her very much. If I had met you, I hope you understand, L." She seemed to be saddened by his words, as she looked down to the ground at his rejection. While she had been trying to cheer him up with her kids, she did have an interest in being with the strong, kind, and cute shinobi that was from her lost clan. She hadn't expected him to be in a relationship already, but she was glad that he was honest enough to tell her 2 times. "It's alright, Naruto-kun, I'm sorry for." Naruto hugged the girl tightly again, cutting her off, and saying softly, "Don't be sorry, Hinoka. I've wanted companionship my whole life since I'm an orphan, and believe me, I think you're beautiful, strong, and smart too. We may not be in a relationship, but I still want to get to know you more, and I want you to come with me. I'm headed to Whirlpool now, and it'd be great if we could go together. We can learn lots of new things, and see where we come from." Naruto really made it hard for her not to be interested in him when he held her like this, and the fact that he was an orphan like her made it worse. Opting to try and see what her competition was like, the red-headed Uzumaki agreed to travel with the blonde to Whirlpool, asking him about his girlfriend and how they would get there as well. One day later, as 2 birds flew over the destroyed village that was once prosperous many years ago, the orange one descended swiftly with the red one quickly following suit. Hinoka had easily learned the transformation after Naruto explained the anatomy of birds because of her extensive research on animals and ninja training, which she had admittedly taught herself from a scroll her mother left when she was young before she died. Hinoka had made her phoenix transformation her favorite color, which was the shade of red her hair was. She had learned a lot about this Amer girl from Naruto, and she admittedly was very grandfather of the way Naruto spoke about her, and the clueless boy didn't even know that she had no desire whatsoever to meet her. Well, unless it was to compare their beauty. The way Naruto talked about it was like she was the best thing since ramen noodles, which they both had a similar addiction to, which made her like him even more. She definitely wasn't some sort of fangirl or anything like that, but Naruto, despite being 2 years younger than her, would be the perfect guy for her, and she longed for companionship just like any orphan would. The fact that his life had been so hard, and yet he had been so strong-willed and determined to push forward, made her respect for him skyrocket even more than his saving her had. The blonde also had promised to train her personally soon, and she was looking forward to the private time they'd spend together. The previous night they had stopped off a port city, which was almost directly west of Whirlpool, and staying in a cheap motel. The 2 of them had actually fallen asleep together, holding each other tightly. Naruto was certainly being innocent, and wasn't perverted at all, but he just seemed to genuinely want to hold his family member close, now that he finally had one. They had talked about many things, mostly about her research on the summoning island, and his life in Konoha. They also pigged out on ramen, which was fun, as they had a contest to see who would finish first. Naruto barely beat her too, but she vowed to win next time. The other thing that they talked about was where they would settle down at, which Naruto admittedly didn't have a clue where to go. After little prodding by Hinoka, who didn't want to waste resources, Naruto had collected a large sum of ryo from around the Summon Island village, since the residents were all dead now. Altogether they acquired about 40,000, and although she knew there was probably more, it was good enough. The Swirling Tides village was in shambles, and Hinoka didn't know how Naruto would find anything in this mess. Skyscrapers were obliterated, and the remains were scattered across the landscape. The stone walls along the outskirts were crumbling, and thick vegetation nearly grew over them. And then there was the humongous hole directly in the center of the village, where it looked like a huge meteor had impacted the ground. Naruto seemed to move with purpose despite all of this, and after the blonde created 50 clones to search around along the river, he told her. Granddad said to look for a tree that blooms white flowers during the spring, and that it's somewhere along the river that goes through the center of the village. Come on, let's look for it too. Sounds like a dogwood tree, Naruto-kun. That looks like one right there, although it isn't white. Let's check it out. Impressed by her knowledge of flora, Naruto and Hinoka made their way to the tree, and Naruto immediately began digging with the kunai, instead of using his clones. He had a feeling that this was the tree, as it had some sort of seal engraved in the bark, and it was larger than many of the others that were around. After a while of digging, the blonde did indeed find what he was looking for, and after searching through its contents, the first thing he did was sign his new summoning contract, and was honored as well when he handed it to her. Then after learning the 5 hand seals, both of them drew a bit of blood and performed them, slamming their palms into the ground simultaneously. Naruto summoned a lavender-colored feline with 2 tails that introduced itself as Espine. Hinoka summoned a black feline with golden rings on various places that said it was Umbreon. Then the 2 summons seemed to notice each other, and all hell broke loose. Leaping away from the 2 energy attacks that collided nearby, causing a massive explosion, both Naruto and Hinoka were shocked at the instant hostility their 2 new summons displayed toward each other. No words were exchanged between the 2 feline summons when they saw each other, but they suddenly just crouched and hissed menacingly at each other, and then attacked. The dark energy sphere that Umbreon unleashed seemed to overpower Espion's beam of light energy, until the collision exploded near them, and while Espion was injured slightly, the feline still taunted Umbreon, as she suddenly was surrounded in an aura of light. The advantage is my little sister, as the sun is high in the sky. Surrender now or prepare to die. Umbreon growled, as her red eyes hardened while watching her older sister heal herself with ease. She may have been the stronger of the 2, but whenever it was daytime, Espion did indeed have an edge. This didn't stop her from continuing their deathmatch, however. Shadow Claw. As the dark-natured feline leapt forward like a jaguar, slashing out with her claws that had a visible black chakra surrounding them, Espion evaded the attack with a shout of double team. Suddenly there were a multitude of the majestic 2-tailed felines that surrounded Umbreon's position, and the psychic cat then pounced out of the illusion, catching Umbreon in her blind spot. Blood was shed as she put into her exposed neck, but the black cat shook her off a bit, being affected very much because of her sister's lack of bite power. As Espion jumped away from her bitter rival for supremacy within their family, Umbreon seemed to suddenly mind them much faster, and growling pursuit the younger cat summoned, and tackled her sister strongly with a dark aura surrounding her. It seemed to hurt Espion considerably, as the older cat staggered back to her paws, and just as Umbreon charged up another shadow ball, she was suddenly bound in chains that shot from both Naruto and Hinoka. What the hell are you doing? We summoned you here to meet you, not so you could kill each other. What the hell are your problems? Naruto yelled at them, as Espion once again looked to the sun, and healed her injuries. Then the stubborn summons tried to attack the bound form of her sister again, but Naruto intervened when clones suddenly shot chains from their sleeves at her, as well. I foresee death in your future, little sister. The 2-tailed feline spat out with venom. You're not strong enough to do it even in the daylight, you are weakling. Darkness is true power. Shut the hell up. Naruto yelled, as culling intent flooded the area, silencing both of the sisters, and even startling Hinoka, who was surprised by the anger all 3 of them radiated. And who are you to order me around, humans? Umbreon shot back, struggling in her binds with no chance of escaping. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and this is Hinoka Uzumaki, and we're new summoners. If you 2 are sisters, why kill each other? Umbreon exclaimed. I see when the village was destroyed, my sisters and I were very young, and my younger brother was just born. We never got to meet any of the Uzumaki clan, and without our parents around we were thrown into turmoil. We didn't have a leader, and, as the oldest daughters of Raikou, our father Umbreon and I took it upon ourselves to lead our family, until our brother Eevee was old enough. Eventually we didn't see eye to eye on certain matters, and our relationship deteriorated into hostility. Our family has been split because of it, and although Eevee, Glacian, Leafian, and Sylvium remain neutral, our other sisters Flareon, Jolteon, and Vaporeon took sides based upon our belief. That is the condition of our family, as of now, until I purge all of Umbreon's dark ways. Shut up, Espion, don't speak like I'm not here, you weakling. Umbreon shouted in rage, as Naruto got a tick mark. Enough. I'll end this pointless fighting here, and now. He declared, as he channeled as much chakra as possible, and went through hand seals a little ways away. In a large poof of smoke there were suddenly a group of confused felines looking around until 3 lay eyes on each other, and growled. Then the yellow and red cats both fired attacks at the blue one on sight, a bolt of electricity, and a large stream of fire approaching, as the blue one disappeared in a whirlpool of water that suddenly formed around her. The short fight was ended by Naruto, who bound the 2 attackers he guessed to be Jolteon and Flareon based on their names and attacks. The smallest one, that was brown, was whimpering in fear at the scuffle, and Naruto guessed correctly that he must have been Eevee. Then the blonde spoke loudly to all of the summons, who paid rapt attention to his firm words. Alright, listen up. I don't know why you all can't get along, but I'll tell you right now, as your new summoner, I won't tolerate any more fighting unless it's by my side or Hinoka's. Family is supposed to protect each other, not kill one another. You're right. The little brown cat squeaked in fear at being singled out, but he hesitantly replied in the affirmative nonetheless. Nodding his head confidently, Naruto then declared. From now on, Eevee will be my personal summons, and, as such, he will also be your leader once he's strong enough. As far as all of you go, from this moment forth all of you shall be advisors to him in family matters, and I don't want any more hostility, or so help me, I'll lend you myself. Understand? Everyone stood still in shock at Naruto's words before both Jolteon and Flareon stepped forward confidently, as Flareon challenged him. I'll only submit to your will when you defeat me in battle. I am the firstborn of my father Entei of Fire. I am Jolteon, daughter of Raikou, along with Umbreon, Espeon, and Sylveon. Who are you, human? I'm Naruto Uzumaki, heir of Whirlpool, and therefore Uzukage. Now let's see what you two can do. Going through hand seals, Naruto shot a blazing stream of fire at Flareon just as the cat spat out an equally powerful fire attack that took his flames and spun them into a twister that came toward him at high speed. Using a one-handed seal, Naruto performed multiple sunshine to find that Jolteon could match his impressive speed, and the lightning cat fired a barrage of hair follicles at him, yelling pin missile. Using a seal, Naruto slipped underground, confusing the pair of summons until chains suddenly shot from beneath Jolteon and Flareon, simultaneously binding Flareon while Jolteon evaded the attack. Then suddenly 5 Narutos shot up from the ground, firing a massive collaboration technique utilizing the Force Palm technique and Phoenix Flower. As the enlarged exercise ball-sized fireballs approached faster than normal, Jolteon dodged the attack, only to find multiple Narutos already sending chains from every direction. With both of the summons bound, Naruto turned to the rest saying, "Anyone else?" Then Vaporeon stepped forward, as Naruto prepared himself for water-style techniques, but he was surprised when she just said, "I've seen enough. As the oldest daughter of Sukyun of the purest waters, I will conduct myself gracefully, along with my sisters Glaceon and Leafeon. The 3 of us are calm-natured, and willing to see our family return to its former glory. We have been fighting long enough." Naruto beamed at the fish like a cat, and told her, "Great, that's what I'm talking about, Dadabeo. You guys don't have to fight for a leader anymore, okay? Just make your brother strong enough, and give him tips if he's the heir. In fact, with the transformation I'll help him myself, alright? Just don't fight. You're all supposed to love one another." As Naruto released the binds of the 4 restrained cats, the only one to crouch down in attack mode was Umbreon, but she slowly rose up, seeing all of her family conversing with one another for the first time in years. She wanted to lead the clan to greatness, and her little brother, while cute, wasn't cut out for the task. He lacked the strength of will and spirit to do so, and his fighting ability was subpar. If anyone should be Naruto's new personal summons, it should have been her, and she let this thought be well heard. "Uzumaki-san, I beseech you to reconsider your proclamation to take my younger brother Eevee as your personal summons. I'm better suited to the task, as I have created many of my own techniques, and no one in my family can match my strength, not even a prodigy. I've worked hard for my power, and I wish to use it to serve you." Naruto instantly didn't like Umbreon's superiority complex, but he still considered her words, and answered her carefully. "I have a better proposal. I'll take you Espeon and Eevee as my personal summons, and you all can learn to work together while Eevee gets stronger. If you make your own moves, then surely you can help your brother, right?" Umbreon appeared taken aback by the suggestion, and nearly declined until Espeon spoke up. "Please sister, we've been divided for too long. You know I didn't wish to lead, but I couldn't let you turn us into a power-obsessed family. We should work together." "Yes sis, please pretty please for your favorite brother," Eevee cutely said, trying to get Umbreon to smile. He wanted to be just like her when he got older, and he was sick of being worried about his family all the time. It was only when he and Glaceon were present that the fighting stopped, and he had taken to hanging with the Ice Cat as much as possible the last few years. "I suppose we will be more powerful together than separated. Bruno will not tolerate weakness, Eevee. Get ready to become stronger than even I, and don't disappoint me." Naruto smiled, seeing through the tough facade that Umbreon put up. If she really wanted to keep things going, she would have just refused, yet she agreed in the end. "Naruto, what about us?" asked Flareon, who had come and sat down next to him while rubbing against his leg and purring. "Don't worry guys, I'll treat all of you equally, and besides Hinoka needs personal summons as well. Why don't you all introduce yourselves to her? In fact, we'd like to see what you all can do, right Hinoka?" She just nodded her head, smiling at the blonde, as he created a clone to watch them all while he continued looking through the box for a scroll containing his grandfather's swords. He found nothing, however, but all he had managed to get was an old journal, the Book of 5 Rings, the Uzumaki sealing method, and the cat summoning contract. Maybe the journal would hold a clue, and opening it to the last page written on, Naruto read at a steady pace, as explosions sounded off nearby. "This will most likely be my final entry, as the combined forces of Kiri, Iwa, and Kumo converge upon my homeland. I hope to leave my blades to my successor one day, but it seems that this will be my final duel, and I will need them in case they penetrate too deep into the village. I never thought I would have to use the Void Strike seal, but now it seems inevitable. I only pray that I don't seal any of my family along with myself into his steps. I love them all so much." Naruto's eyes were watery as he read the last entry in his grandfather's journal, and remembering the massive crater in the center of the village, he actually chuckled at the old man's overkill. That chuckle turned into a sob of untold magnitude, as the clone that was with Amer dispelled, sending Naruto the memories of its battle with that bastard Shino. Amer was dead. Naruto saw red. Nothing but red.
That's it for today guys. I hope you enjoyed my video and see you in the next part of this video. Till then, sayonara.